Wacom Cintiq tablet. I've tried the larger ones, but the smaller ones suit me best. You can kind of spin them around, use it a bit like a notepad, and it's high resolution, so it's pointless to have a bigger one. I've even tried the 27-inch. It's not great, I sold it. 21 and the small one, I think 14-inch, work best. So I sketched out this image for Shield Wall, the card that I want to add for the Kickstarter version, or the Kickstarter edition of the cards. Sketched it out in all these layers that I showed. Adding on darkness onto the top, key it in. Basically when the sketch is at this stage, all I keep on doing every time I revisit it is just make the darker bits darker, or make the dark bits darker and the light bits lighter, with alternating layers. So I'll have a black layer, then a white layer, zoom in and do little details like this, really try and add some depth to it, even down to adding the little nail heads on the centers of the shields, the kind of stuff that you probably couldn't possibly see on the card's final print, but it's just nice to be able to go in there and add that detail, especially if ever I'm to use the images for something else, maybe for the manual or for the website, something like that. It's good to have that potential high resolution for it. Always go around the edges because I don't use vectors. I'm painting all in raster with the brush tool, so the lines are never super sharp, so I always go over them and over them and over them till I'm happy with them. Although to be fair, I'm never really happy. Like I never feel like it's finished. I just at some point say that it's enough. See this one here, see how sketchy and messy it is still. I've not worked it up, so I'll go back in, tidy it up, sharpen off the lines. I know I could paint that shield center straight through the spear and then do the spear in another layer on top, but you know, the way I've started it I think it's fine. Kind of a sketchy style, not too many layers, just kind of building it up. Doesn't have to be perfect because, as I say, it is going to be printed on a small card. Can't really see the intricacies of the shield centers at a scale like that. Still think it's worth spending a decent amount of time on every image though. I just wouldn't feel the same putting a card game together if I'd been lazy and if I knew the images were flawed or bad, or if I really didn't like them. I just wouldn't be happy with making the cards. Gotta really like all the images for it to be worthwhile. Even in there at the edges, I feel like nah, it's gotta be darker. It's gotta seem like it's disappearing behind the other shields. Had considered going back and putting the individual boards making up the shields, but I don't think it would add much to the image. I kind of like that it's a generic shield. You can't really tell that whether it's made of timber boards, or you can't tell it's made with timber boards with a metal rim, or if it's just metal shields. And that suits the game because the game's got different armies which would have had different shields. I'm pretty aware of all the different kinds of shields from different armies and different civilizations. I had to kind of be as generic as possible for an action card that could apply to any of these. Even the use of spears, I suppose, makes it too specific, but I did like the idea of the shield wall having these spears protruding, just to add a bit of what's the word for it? Yeah, just add a bit of excitement to the image, if you can call it that. It makes it more interesting, I think. But I do spend forever on these little details like that. So going around the edge, where I'd seen that edge, I thought it wasn't very sharp, wasn't very good. Shield didn't look properly round, looked squashed. Didn't like it. I had to go up and rework it. And if I finished going around it and sharpening it, if I still didn't like it, I would just erase and start over, or paint over it, draw over it, do a new one on top, redo it. Adding in the shadows and things like this, you can spend forever doing it. But the difference between this and just using some stock image or outsourcing it, for me this makes it all worthwhile. Makes me happy to actually just look at the cards when they're finished. Sometimes I'll just look back at a card that I've finished and I'll think, the drawing's just not good enough, I need to go back and do it again. Before the first edition I did that a lot of times. I'd be looking at an image and I'd think, no, it shouldn't be like that. The original image of the battering ram, I think I redid it 3 times till I got one that I really liked. The first version, there was no wheels on the battering ram, it was just a log, it was rubbish. So I kept going back, adding to it, redoing it till I was happy. This shield wall, I spent an exceptional length of time on it just because it's kind of a special edition card, because first edition's already been released of the cards. This is purely for the Kickstarter edition. It's the only card I'm going to be adding in for the Kickstarter edition. I mean, I've changed cards since first edition, changed the images on them, changed some of the numbers, but this is the only completely new card getting added in. Shield wall. And I'm adding it in because in the first edition it seemed to be that it wasn't quite balanced. It was very close to balanced, but it seemed like one massive attack just always won the game. The game never ended just from, you know, a variety of ways. The game seemed to always end when someone did a huge attack and just took the whole enemy out and all their armies and won. Which is a valid way to win, but it shouldn't be always the way you win. So I thought adding a card with an unlimited defense value would make the difference. So I added it on at the end there. As you can see in Illustrator, all the cards are laid out in order there, and I go through them for balancing, for checking the images, for making sure the images are balanced, and adding in that shield wall at the end there. Forgive the shaky footage.